Mr. Rogan, prey on people's vulnerabilities. They prey on fear.
Sorry, not such a great backdrop for today. As you can see, the clouds have rolled in somewhat. Today I'll predominantly be dealing with free speech and the issue of the media. In Australia, we have an ABC, which is a state-funded organisation, and the chair of the Australian ABC is someone by the name of Kim Williams, and he attacked Joe Rogan at the National Press Club, as you can see.
I think people like Mr. Rogan prey on people's vulnerabilities. They prey on fear, they prey on anxiety, they prey on all of the elements that contribute to uncertainty in society, and they entrepreneur fantasy outcomes and conspiracy outcomes as being a normal part of social narrative. I personally find it deeply repulsive, and to think that someone has such remarkable power in the United States is something that I look at in disbelief. I'm also absolutely in dismay that this can be a source of public entertainment when it's really treating the public as plunder for purposes that are really quite malevolent.
Elon Musk referred to the ABC as the Australian Pravda on Twitter. Here is the reality. Williams is really repulsed by Rogan's reach and success. He and the ABC more generally are purely grifters that are sponging off the taxpayer, while Rogan and other podcasters and social media people actually have to work for their audience. He clearly feels pressured by this competition that podcasts and other social media and unconventional media represent. To me personally, what is really repulsive is spitting bile about something that you fundamentally know nothing about. If Kim Williams had bothered, for example, to have watched the Rogan interview with Donald Trump, he would have seen how valuable this is, where you can have a very long-form interview which really lets you get to know the person, whereas the ABC and other conventional media, it's very short, and basically what you're presented with is their distillation of what the image that they want to present about the person. So you fundamentally don't get to know the person. And this is what is challenging them significantly and what they feel fundamentally uncomfortable about. Australia has enacted a social media ban for Australians aged 16 and under. What this means is that Australians under 16 will not be allowed to access Facebook or TikTok or Snapchat or similar sorts of social media. And how they're going to enforce age checking for these people, I don't know, but I have a very good suspicion. But this is very clearly a case of government overreach. Access to these sorts of platforms should be up to the parents. This is not up to government to do, but government, like our leftist government in Australia, like to continue to push big government and more government involvement in people's lives. But in addition to that, this is also an attack on free speech, and in effect it's a protection racket for traditional media. And government is very concerned about what is occurring with non-traditional media, because it causes them to lose control of the agenda. It's much easier just to work with a few media outlets and control the narrative than it is to try and control anyone that's got access to a laptop or other means of getting onto the internet and giving information in a manner that they deem fit. So this is dreadful overreach by the Australian government.
Australia's Senate is voting on a landmark bill to ban children under the age of 16 from accessing social media. Or if this passes, it would be the first of its kind anywhere in the world and aims to hold platforms accountable and to mitigate the negative impacts of the internet on the young. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's centre-left Labour government hoped to pass the bill during Parliament's final session of the year, and potentially the last before elections due in the next few months. The House of Representatives had overwhelmingly supported the age restriction. The bill would make platforms like TikTok, Facebook and Snapchat liable for fines of up to $33 million if they fail to take steps to prevent young children from having accounts.
I mentioned potential means of age checking of people to ensure that they are over 16 in order to access these social media sites. Well, the government has digital ID check legislation in play, and they will probably try to use this to enforce the age requirements. And in effect, it's a backdoor to force every Australian to use digital ID whether they want to or not. The argument will be, well, you opted to use this to get onto Facebook. It was a choice whether you wanted to be on Facebook or Snapchat or whatever. You didn't have to, and therefore you chose to use digital ID. This is very much the same as in COVID days, where you had the nonsense of the vaccinations being voluntary, where the simple fact is they were forced on people. There was this pretense that it was voluntary, but it's like sticking a gun against someone's head and saying, your money or your life. You hand over your money and then they say, well, you've got no need to complain. You actually had a choice. But in any case, this whole thing's stupid. What they don't realise is that young people are very tech savvy. And so they will go about using VPNs or otherwise using proxy servers, etc., to fool the location of the person so that it isn't in Australia, so that people under 16 will be able to access it anyway. Totally foolish and misguided. Catherine Herridge used to work for the CBS, but she was fired due to the Biden laptop story. Basically, she had been doing a lot of research around the Biden laptop and wanted to present the story prior to the 2022 midterm elections. However, CBS management said that they did not want the story published prior to the 2022 election. They wanted it published post the 2022 election. Now, her contention, and I have to say that I agree with it, is that basically, in terms of publishing and good journalism, you should publish a story when the story is ready to go. You should not be deciding when to publish a story based on the political cycle. This is basically a case of election interference. And as we went into yesterday, ABC, CBS and NBC were very much involved with pushing a narrative around the Democrats as opposed to Republicans. And this is fundamentally what they're about.
I went to a lot of effort to get the cleanest copy of the laptop data, the same data that was provided to the FBI, because I didn't want to have any professional journalistic risk for CBS News. I wanted this thing to be totally locked down. When we did the story, we did it after the midterms. I argued against that because it was ready before the midterms. And my training is that you should always do the story when it's ready to go. You should not be dictated by the political cycle.
Herridge also states that the texts written by Joe Biden included prolific use of the N-word, which you would think would be newsworthy, wouldn't you? However, CBS didn't want to run it.
Once we got the laptop story on the morning news, I felt that there was so much there that we could still do. For example, in the text messages, there's unfortunately the use of the N-word, the liberal use of the N-word. And I thought this was worthy of a story, but I was told that it was not something that interested CBS News. Then I asked for a forensic review of the laptop, and we found that there were more than half a dozen emails that were likely used by Joe Biden. I thought that was a story. But the answer that came back was, well, we need to know what the content is of the emails. But that was going to be a years-long process.
Now, imagine if Trump had used the N-word. Do you really seriously doubt that CBS would have run it on almost constant loop, given their race obsession? But the problem is it distorts from the message that it's Republicans that are the nasty racists and Democrats are purer than driven snow and could not possibly be racist. Another factor that Herridge mentions is that there were also multiple different email accounts, and CBS didn't want that disclosed until there was forensic deep examination of all of the emails, which would have taken a significant period of time. But it does beg the question, why do you have multiple different email accounts? Surely this is something that should have been asked. There may have been a reasonable answer for it, but don't you think that it's something that would have been worth asking? Thank you very much for watching.